Hi, this is Luke for UncommonHeritage.com. Our project today is a compost tumbler made out of a recycled 55-gallon plastic barrel. The barrel will sit on top of here, rest on these 4 rollers, and that will allow it to roll. Now this design is actually quite a bit different than a lot of compost tumblers I've seen. A lot of them that you see, what they actually do is put the door right in the middle on the side. I felt like having the door in the middle would make it difficult to get the compost out, because basically you'll have this big opening here that you're trying to reach down in with maybe a little garden scoop or something like that. I like to use bigger tools. I like to be able to get a big long-handled spade in there, and when this door is open, laying on its side, I'm thinking I'll be able to get a nice big long handled garden shovel spade in there, and that one of them has the curved bottom in it like you typically see in this part of the country for a garden spade. Be able to get that in there, scoop that compost right out of there. I've marked out the outline where I'm wanting to cut the door. The way I did that was actually use a half-size cardboard template. So the hinges I'm going to mount right here on the higher part, upside down. Well, I went ahead and drilled these holes. The reason I did that is if I were to cut this out with a scroll saw or jigsaw, whichever you prefer to call it, first, then I somehow have to hold this in position while I mark the holes to drill and somehow get those perfect. It won't come out quite right. So I put the hinges on, took a marker, marked the holes, all 4 holes, holding it down tight. Same thing here. Then I took a drill and went ahead and drilled it. Then I'll come back through, cut this out with a scroll saw, and then I'll be able to, when this piece is free-floating, it's separated, and come back, put all the bolts in, tighten them down. Up at the top here, I went ahead and did the same thing. This is the latch I'm going to be putting on it. This cardboard template, I made it for one side. I marked around it carefully with the marker, getting right over it, holding the marker up. This isn't the marker I used. I used a Sharpie ultrafine marker, but I got in right over it where I could see straight down and marked. There's an uneven surface and it doesn't lay flat on the barrel. Marked one side, flipped it over on the same center line, the same bottom, and went ahead and marked the other side exactly the same way. Alright, now I have the hardware on. I put the 2 hinges on, the latch, the catch, and what I haven't done yet is actually tighten all of this down. And the reason I haven't done it yet is I wanted to put it on here and see if I needed to move it around. But one thing I still have to do is put some sort of baffle inside of here. What will happen if I don't? When this is on its side, when we go to turn it, the compost, especially as it, depending on the weight and how the compost is, what it will tend to do is to just sit in the bottom and not actually get tumbled. This is supposed to be a tumbler. It needs to mix and fall over on itself and mix air into it. What I'm planning to do is drill at least 3, maybe as many as 5 or even 7 holes in the sides here. Run a nylon rope through it, through to the back, so that the rope runs parallel to the length of the barrel. Let's get this mounted up on the base and see how it goes. Okay, I really can't take this outside. We've got about a foot of snow outside today. This is really not the type of shovel that I had in mind for using this with. Although, if it were mounted fairly high where you could actually reach in, it might actually work pretty well. I can still reach all the way to the end and the bottom. Okay, I want to take a minute and talk about holes. Everybody always talks about aerating compost. You see compost bins constructed with hardware cloth, with woven wire, to allow air to come in from the outside. You see compost bins like this with holes drilled all over them. I haven't drilled any holes in this one. I will drill some holes for drainage, small holes that won't be big enough to let rats in. I'll drill them, let's open it up, along the sides, probably a ring around the back, a ring around the front, maybe some in the middle, but just small holes. Frankly, I'm not big on holes, and it's going to depend partly on your climate, partly on how you're using this, composting. Obviously, these two holes caps could be taken out and give you holes there. The problem with larger holes is that it lets animals in, which is part of the whole point of this design. I know rats and so forth, if they're determined enough, they can still chew on it. I wouldn't put meat in this. But really where it gets the air is from turning it. My opinion is the best thing to do is to open it up before you turn it, get some fresh air in, close it up, turn it, and leave it closed up. Really it's from the tumbling that it gets the air in. Obviously, if the air inside is all stale, it's not going to get fresh air, but if you open it up and let it air out a little bit first, you can get some fresh air in there and then tumble it and mix it in. The amount of air that can actually get into a compost pile from the outside seems to be fairly minimal. But what does happen if you have a lot of holes is that a lot of heat escapes. And this is actually a pretty small container to get compost heated up in. You may want to paint this a dark color and put it in the sun. If you're in the deep south, you may not want to do that because it may soften the plastic too much. The way it's resting on the rollers, it may deform the barrel, depending on your barrel and where it's at. Another thing I want to talk about is safety. When this barrel is full, depending on what you have in it, if it were full of water, it would weigh about 400 pounds. I don't know if you've ever run down a hill behind with a barrel chasing you full of 400 pounds of water or oil or whatever, but that's not a position you or your children want to find yourself in. Put this in a place where if it were to come unmounted from these rollers, that it either would be restrained or not cause a safety issue. Also be aware that even if it's empty and not particularly heavy, what could actually happen is this could blow. I could conceive of this blowing out of your garden area into the road, possibly causing a car to swerve and creating a wreck. That's not what you want to happen with your compost bin. That's our project for today. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you build one, let me know. I'd like to hear about it.